Ladies and gentlemen, this is so hilarious. So Democrats are going to include bribery. What they're saying is that Trump engaged in bribery and wire fraud. He violated the law. We're going to impeach him based on this, even though they didn't include bribery in the initial articles of impeachment. So this is really hilarious. Washington Post, this is like, an hour ago? Democrats accuse Trump of criminal bribery, wire fraud, in a report that explains articles of impeachment. So this is really hilarious. Democrats accuse President Trump of multiple federal crimes, including bribery and wire fraud, in a new report released Monday that explains the articles of impeachment the House is expected to approve mostly along party lines Wednesday. Now, they're going to impeach Trump Wednesday or Thursday. They're going to impeach Trump under the notion that he elicited something of worth by bribing another country, even though President Zelensky stated there was no leverage at all. And one of the impeachment witnesses, Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, states categorically that President Obama's administration gave her talking points regarding the conflicts of interest that Hunter Biden had regarding his work with Burisma. Now, there are other issues that were documented in Politico, so everything I say is backed up by public record. You can look at the impeachment witnesses, and you can look at Marie Yovanovitch, or you can look at Politico, where they actually state, Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire, and they talk about the operatives within the DNC that reached out to the Ukraine and got damaging information on Manafort and President Trump, tried to get damaging information. So they're the ones who reached out to other countries. But here, number one, this is predicated upon the belief that Trump engaged in bribery because he wanted to investigate. He was withholding money to investigate Biden, and investigating Biden would have swung the next election, because Biden is Trump's direct political rival. Number one, it's Clinton who's running. The whole thing is a sham and a hoax and a scam, just like the Mueller nonsense, where they didn't even include anything pertaining to the Mueller report within the articles of impeachment. So that should tell you what they found, which is absolutely nothing. Okay? Then you have an interesting, I'm just getting this right now, Supreme Court ruling pulls rug from under articles of impeachment. The decision by the Supreme Court to review the lower court's ruling involving congressional and prosecution subpoenas directed toward President Trump undercuts the second article of impeachment that passed the House Judiciary Committee along party lines last week. This is amazing, okay? So the Supreme Court is giving Trump a big victory in looking at all of this. The decision by the Supreme Court to review the lower court's ruling involving congressional and prosecution subpoenas directed towards President Trump undercuts the second article of impeachment, which was abuse of power, obstruction of justice, obstruction of Congress. So they start this fabricated Mueller probe based on a dossier purchased by Clinton, where they can't prove even one Facebook ad swung the election, and where Clinton got the popular vote, but lost swing states, and the DNC email showed they cheated Bernie Sanders, so they cheated and then lost. Now you have the second article of impeachment charges President Trump with obstruction of justice for refusing to comply with, obstruction of Congress for refusing to comply with congressional demands in the absence of a final court order. So in so charging him, the House Judiciary Committee has arrogated to itself the power to decide the validity of its subpoenas, as well as the power to determine whether claims of executive privilege must be recognized. Both branches, not the legislative branch. So both powers that properly belong with the judicial branch of our government, not the legislative branch. The House of Representatives will do likewise if it votes to approve articles, as is expected to occur Wednesday. President Trump has asserted that the executive branch, of which he is the head, need not comply with congressional subpoenas requiring production of privileged executive material unless there is a final court order compelling such production. He has argued appropriately that the judicial branch is the ultimate arbiter of conflicts between the legislative and executive branches. Therefore, Supreme Court decision to review these three cases in which lower courts ruled against President Trump provides support for his constitutional arguments in the investigation. The cases that are being reviewed are not identical to the challenged subpoenas that form the basis of the second article of impeachment. One involves the authority of the New York District Attorney to subpoena the financial records of a sitting president as part of any criminal investigation that has nothing to do with Trump, by the way. But they are close enough, even if the high court were eventually to rule against the claims by President Trump, the fact that the justices decided to hear them, in effect, supports his constitutional contention that he has the right to challenge congressional subpoenas in court, or demand that those issuing the subpoena seek to enforce them through the courts. The fact that they're looking at this, no matter how they vote, has already given Trump a monumental win. This is The Hill today. This is by Alan Dershowitz, The Hill, okay, constitutional scholar. Look, the Supreme Court ruling pulls rug from articles of impeachment. This is what they did. They're saying he committed bribery. They said he obstructed Congress. They said he committed bribery based on the viewpoint. No evidence, no emails, no nothing, no evidence. Just the viewpoints of disgruntled diplomats. That's it. And one intelligence operative. And one official who also agreed with them. Okay, military official. Okay, so they have nothing but people's opinions. That's it. That's all they have. They have only people's opinions. They don't have actual proof or evidence that Trump withheld money. Now, you're going to hear right now. So number one, that's a huge. That just was out right now. So Supreme Court Trump. So the Supreme Court gives him a huge win. You can't just demand. You can't just demand that everyone around Trump testify before a political, just purely political committees, the House Intelligence and the House Judicial Committee, House Judiciary Committee. These are not. They don't care about like really intelligence matters or legislative matters. They care only about getting Trump. That's it. They're run by Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler. These people are known. Well, they're going to vote Clinton 2020 anyway. The whole thing's a farce to begin with. It's a theatrical performance. They're like, look at all these people. It's so wonderful, and there's 20 people. None of them have a chance to win. And now you see Bernie creeping up. They're going to cheat him again. This is hilarious. And the only way they would have, look, in 2016, had everyone done what I did, had everyone done what H.A. Goodman did on the left and said, no, I'm not voting for you. I'm not voting for a Democrat that cheats. They wouldn't cheat again. But all the people that said, no, it's okay, vote for Clinton. It's the lesser of two, wrongs. That gives them license to cheat again. They're going to cheat again. Obviously, the whole thing's rigged to begin with. But this is really interesting. Trump, Supreme Court Trump. So, this is the Washington Post. The Supreme Court has given Trump a victory before even hearing his case. Nice. Letters to the editor. Okay. By setting an accelerated schedule for decision, the Supreme Court granted the executive branch of government in general, and President Trump in particular, a significant victory in delaying the cases brought by the state of New York and 3 congressional committees seeking access to the president's finances. It is understandable that the court would decide to hear the cases rather than allow the lower court's decision to stand because the separation of powers issues presented. Okay? However, when the operations of government can be seriously affected or a presidency is at stake, in Bush v. Gore, the court, as in Bush v. Gore in 2000, the court can render a decision essentially within days. Even if they vote against Trump, they still prove Trump's argument that you can't just, on a whim, just because you feel it's important, demand the president comply with a congressional subpoena. It has to be. He has the right to challenge whatever Democrats demand. So a formal demand from Congress can be challenged in the Supreme Court by the president. Now, they say it can't. So he's already won. But let's say, for example, a 5-4 Supreme Court votes along President Trump and says, yeah, you know what? He doesn't need to comply with your ridiculous demands. because you have to actually accuse him of a specific crime based on the evidence you've acquired. You haven't even acquired any evidence. It's a phone conversation where even Biden himself is saying, oh yeah, well, we withheld $1 billion until we fired a prosecutor because that prosecutor wasn't investigating the immense corruption. Well, he was investigating the corporation that was he was investigating the corporation that was funneling millions to his son. That's the conflict of interest that Trump wanted to investigate himself, which is valid, completely valid. That is hilarious because that's also viewed as the bribery. That's the thing of value. Yeah, inherently, Biden's potential corruption, misconduct, wrongdoing is a thing of value, inherently. But the hilarious thing is that they don't have, I believe the Supreme Court will side with the president. You cannot have Congress simply demand that everyone around the president testify, drop everything they're doing. You can't have Congress simply, we need all your records, your financial records. You have to testify. Why? Because New York, a bastion of the Democratic Party, Tammany Hall, which is Clinton 2020 is a reality. Get ready for 8 years of Trump. She's going to run. Says, oh, well, this court ruled against you. Well, of course the New York court is going to rule against Trump. They're all Democrats. New York is like the epicenter of Democratic corruption. Okay? But by failing or refusing to set an accelerated schedule in these cases, the court delayed resolution until mid-2020, which in turn could delay consideration and resolution of the affected matters by state of New York. And so the court should not be deciding cases whether the issues will become moot. So here, so they're not... the court delayed resolution until mid-2020. Wow. So on some of these, they're actually delaying this until far after... long after impeachment, which is hilarious because they're going to be like, this is basically proving Trump right. So forget just about the bribery. The bribery is hilarious because the thing of value is Biden's corruption. And then President Trump's defense is that he withheld military assistance not because he cares about the No Malarkey bus tour, because nobody does. Okay? That's the biggest hilarious joke of all time. What took place is that this is hilarious. What's really taking place is, well, Trump's defense is that, no, we didn't withhold money because we were afraid of Biden and we wanted to investigate Biden. We withheld money because the country is known to be corrupt. We wanted to make sure that when they received the money, it wouldn't go into the hands of oligarchs or, officials or whatever. That is his official stance, which is exactly the same stance as Biden's official stance, which is that there was no quid pro quo or bribery on my end, even though he literally said, and you can see here, this is hilarious. This is really hilarious. Check this out. I think the Donbass has potential to be able to be solved, but it takes two things. One of those things is missing now, and that is I'm desperately concerned about the backsliding on the part of Kyiv in terms of corruption. They made, I'll give you one concrete example. But it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones, so I got Ukraine, and oh, that's funny. You got Ukraine? Wow, you just happened to get Ukraine, and your son was on the board of one of the largest energy companies. What if not the largest gas companies in Ukraine? And it's being investigated for corruption right now. That's interesting.
I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee.
So wait. Biden wouldn't give $1 billion for fear that there was so much corruption that he had to force them to fire a prosecutor. But Trump wouldn't give them hundreds of millions, and that was not because of the corruption that Biden talks about. That was because he was so afraid of the No Malarkey bus tour.
And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here, and I think it was, 6 hours? I said, leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Solid according to you. Oh, that's really nice. You're interfering in the matters of Ukrainian politics. Someone who was solid. Oh, that's good. As long as you feel that he was solid. Do you see what's taking place, ladies and gentlemen? This is absolutely hilarious. And the Supreme Court just essentially prevented one of the key allegations in impeachment. This is absolutely the most hilarious thing you've ever heard in your life, or I've ever heard in my life. They're impeaching President Trump on one article of impeachment that the Supreme Court has just struck down by even looking at the case. Because the Democrats are like, you can't take our subpoenas to court. We're Congress. And Supreme Court's like, nah, that's not true. Yeah, that's not true at all. Whether or not we rule in Trump's favor, he can always contest your demands for anything. And then the other issue is that this impeachment is predicated upon the fact that Trump only withheld money because he was afraid of the No Malarkey bus tour, Biden's campaign. He knows very well it's Clinton who's going to be nominee. But anyway, that is undercut by Biden's own words when he says, yeah, we and even I always look at Snopes, which is hilarious because they've replaced the Bible. Democrats have replaced the Bible with that website Snopes. Snopes is like, he didn't fire Shokin. He didn't force the Ukraine to fire Shokin because of personal interest. It was because of corruption. Well, that's exactly what Trump is saying. That's why he withheld the money until the administration made sure that the money would go to the Ukraine and not to corrupt individuals. Give me your thoughts below. This is unbelievable. Supreme Court comes to the rescue. Give me your thoughts below. Check out H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. Share this segment everywhere. This is a really, really important segment. Thank you.